Good day. Welcome back to another episode of Just for the Record. I am Glenderlyn David, a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, New Chi Zeta chapter. Here with me today is Samuel Carrion. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Nice.
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So tell us a little about yourself.
First of all, thank you for having me, Ms. David. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm Samuel Sam Carrion, number 12 on the ballot. Born and raised here on the island of St. Croix, product of the public school system, went to a local school, and a graduate of Central High School, Carib. I went off also then and pursued my studies. I have a bachelor's in business administration and then theology. Came back home and I worked in various sectors within our community, the public sector for a few years in the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands as a judicial assistant. Then I also worked in the nonprofit sector. I was a Red Cross director, so I have that experience of managing a nonprofit organization. And then I also worked in the office of the governor as a policy advisor.
Nice. Thank you so much for that introduction.
Now, as you know, I'm serving in the 34th legislature as one of the senators.
Okay. So can you tell us 3 most important qualities you believe every leader should have?
I think one that is important is integrity. A leader must possess integrity skills and be the person that people see you. So I think that's also crucial. Also, I think you need to have a character. Your character speaks about you, who you are, the type of person you are. And also, as a leader, you must also have commitment, be dedicated and be committed.
I'm glad that you brought up those qualities. So, be it that you worked in different sectors, both private and public, what do you think your former employers would say about you?
Well, I have a good relationship with all my former employers and bosses. When I see them, what they say about me is, Sam, we feel very proud of you. We've seen your growth. We've seen your accomplishment. Keep on making us proud. So that's the type of feedback I get from my employers.
Awesome. What do you think your colleagues would say about you?
I have a great working relationship with my colleagues. I've been fortunate enough to, in the 34 legislature, to be able to build those relationships. Even though I'm a no-party independent candidate, I sit in the majority. I'm a member of the majority, and I have a very good relationship with all my colleagues.
Awesome. So now that you have introduced yourself to the community, it's time to answer some of the questions that are bothering us. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Nice. How can we diversify agriculture in the Virgin Islands to include hydroponics?
That's a very good question. I appreciate you bringing that. Agriculture needs to be diversified. I think part of what we need to start doing is educating, and it needs to start within our schools. I think there's a misconcept of what agriculture is, and hence a lot of our young people are like moving away from it because they only see agriculture as hard, working the soil, working the ground. And yes, that's part of it. But now you have so much of technology in agriculture, and it has really diversified within that field. So we need to really educate and show all the different things that agriculture has to offer to develop that interest within our young people, especially to go into that field. I'm happy to see UVI started now in offering associate and bachelor's degree in the field of agriculture. So I'm looking forward to seeing that diversification, and also, like you said, hydroponics and different ways to really grow and get people involved and also being part of it.
Awesome. So explain a little bit about a marketing plan for the local sale of agricultural products in the territory.
Well, part of what we did, and now in the 34 legislature, we provided some funding because for the first time there was a law that requested UVI and the Department of Agriculture to work in unity to come up with a plan. We never had a plan before for the territory for the Department of Agriculture. So now we provided funding to be able to execute that plan. So the plan was created, and now we provided funding for the execution of that plan. And what we're looking to see now is having more support for the farmers, and having also more technical support, and they're establishing also technical center to be able to provide that type of support for the farmers.
Awesome. I know in your response you talked about getting the young people involved, especially through education, which is very important. So what is your opinion on the current state of education, public education here in the Virgin Islands, specifically St. Croix?
Well, we have a lot of issues within the Department of Education, and that's no secret. Our buildings are not properly maintained, so that has been an issue over the years. Most of our buildings are old, and it's time for us to get some new buildings in place. But also because of COVID, first because of Hurricane Irma and Maria, and because of COVID also, we had our students that were out for almost 2 years or more. So there's a gap in their education and learning. So right now the department needs to maybe create some extra hours available, extra programs for our students to ensure that we could get them up to par with our education system here in the territory.
So what would you say is one strength in the Virgin Islands public education system and one weakness, and then kind of explain how we could build on that strength and improve on that weakness?
I think our strength are the teachers, the principals, the faculty and staff. They are passionate about what they do. Teaching, I really think teaching is more a vocation than anything. So you really have to love what you do in order to do it. And I've seen in conversations with teachers and members of the Department of Education that passion is there. They want to see more for our children. They want to see more in the Department of Education. So I think that's one of the strengths. One of the weaknesses is, like I said, the maintenance. I think part of it is funding and really filling the vacancies that we have within the maintenance crew so that we could have year-round maintenance of our buildings so that when our children and teachers and the whole staff come into our schools, they come into an environment that is environmentally friendly, that it's safe, and that they feel happy about being in that learning environment.
Very important. What programs would you like to legislate? Because you're stressing a lot about our young people, which I love. What programs would you legislate for training in terms of getting our youths more involved?
Well, when it comes to legislating for programs for schools, I really like to leave that up to the Board of Education and the Department of Education. Part of our role as senators, of course, is really oversight, making laws, and also appropriating funding. But I would like to see some more things. And I don't necessarily think that everything that I would like to see needs to be legislative, needs to be made a law. I think those are things that could be implemented by the department and the board. So more opportunities in the areas of career technical field and having requirements for our seniors or our students, I should say, within our high school to really engage into a trade. That way we ensure that if in any event they don't go off to college, but they leave the high school with a certificate program and with knowledge in a specific trade that can assist them in moving along in life.
Awesome. Kind of staying on the topic of our youth, which is very near and dear to my heart. For the general public, we have a lot of physical altercations that have been occurring in our schools as of late, which kind of transition over into our community with our crime. So the crime in the territory has been fluctuating. There's some years we see a significant rise, and then other years we see a great decrease, a great drop. What do you think are two contributing factors to the uptake in crime, and how can the factor be addressed?
I think two factors. One is poverty. In the Virgin Islands, we have our percentage, according to the last census, is very high of our community that it's below poverty level. And that creates a sense of problems within the family structure, problems within our young people, not having the things that they need, the parents not be present all the time because both parents are working,
Right.
And affects that family nucleus. And sometimes because of that, you don't have that proper education within the family structure. So I think that's one thing. The second thing is the lack of other alternatives and programs. I think one of the focus that we need to really look into is prevention programs.
Yes.
And have more alternative for our children, so they could be involved and get involved in extracurricular activities that would keep their minds occupied.
Nice. So, just as a follow up, how do you think you would improve access to legal resources for the youth as well as other residents of the territory?
Well, in our role as a senator, like I mentioned before, one of it is to be able to appropriate funding. So we have to ensure that the departments and agencies that are focused to provide services for our children are properly funded. And if they're properly funded, that means they're properly staffed, they have the equipment necessary, they have the tools and material necessary then to carry out their job and their responsibilities. So funding properly these departments and agencies that target our young people is crucial if we want to see a change.
Nice. Shifting topics just a bit in terms of healthcare. This is another issue that is very near and dear to my heart. What is your current opinion about the state of healthcare here in the territory, specifically again on St. Croix?
The state of our healthcare is in dire need of, I would say, coming back to life, because practically, I think our healthcare system, it's on life support, if you ask me. When you speak to nurses and part of the healthcare staff, even though they're passionate, about what they do, they're burnt out. They lack the resources necessary to carry out their duties. So we really need to bring healthcare back to life. And it really would require to properly funding the healthcare system. And really, we have to do a better job in attracting individuals that are specialized, doctors and nurses that have special training in certain areas, so that our people don't have to continue leaving the territory to seek medical assistance and medical help, because it's really dividing the family. Every time someone has to leave, and some people could afford it, others can't.
Yeah.
So it's an area that I'm hopeful that in the near future, with the new hospital and moving into JFL North, we would see some improvement, because they have the equipment and those modules, state-of-the-art equipment. So I'm hoping that things will improve through their recruiting and marketing strategies that they've shared with us in the Senate. So to attract new doctors and nurses and specialize in different areas into the territory.
Awesome. So currently you serve in the 34th legislature, looking a seat in the 35th. How do you think you and your colleagues would be able to increase healthcare funding for the territory?
Well, as many in our community have heard lately, that funding is not an issue. Our revenue streams have been coming in. We've been doing very good and been able to pass. I'm also a member of the Finance Committee. We're able to pass a very balanced budget, and there's some surplus funding in there, and it has been so for the last 2 years. So we're in a position where constantly we tell directors and commissioners, tell us what you need. I'm not an expert in the area of healthcare. By no means. So that's why I rely on the expertise of those that are in that field. And we constantly tell them, tell us what you need. You need more funding, justify. What do you need it for exactly? And so the funding is there. It's not a matter of funding.
Okay, awesome. What is your current position on the mental health services of the Virgin Islands?
Needs to improve. I was part of, along with my colleagues and Senator Noel Francis, in passing the Mental Health Comprehensive Act, which really expands the mental health care services in the territory. We need to be able to build an institution also where people that suffer from mental health can receive assistance, can receive support. We need to also have more outlets for therapy and counseling. I think it's important. So those things are areas that we've been focusing on the 34th, and we'll continue to focus and work along with my colleagues on the 35th.
Nice. We're going to shift gears just a bit again. What are two untapped economic development opportunities that you feel are undeveloped? And what is your plan to contribute to the development of those industries?
Two taps, say that again.
What are two untapped economic development opportunities that you feel are undeveloped? And what is your plan to contribute to the development of these industries?
Well, there was one that was untapped, and I tapped into it in the 34th, which is short-term rentals. I was successful, along with the support of my colleagues, to pass a hotel efficiency occupancy tax. And what that did is allowed us now to be able to tap into the stream of revenue that we were leaving on the table. And through the Bureau of Economic Research, realized that millions of dollars were being left on the table through online platforms that do reservations for the territory. As you know, the Virgin Islands is a tourist destination, and we are one of the top in the Caribbean. And we were not really getting the taxes through our hotel occupancy tax, which is 12.5% from online platforms. For example, like Expedia or HomeAway and those type of online platforms that are an online avenue by which people make their reservations to come into the territory. So now, through my bill that became law, the government now can tap into these companies and ensure that they pay their necessary taxes into the territory. So before they couldn't, because they weren't recognized as doing business in the Virgin Islands, because they physically didn't have a corporate office here. They were just online. So we were successful in passing legislation by which now recognizes these companies as doing business in the territory, even though they're not physically here. So we're talking about millions in revenue that will be coming into the territory. The same is with other online companies, such as Amazon and so many others that many in our community are able to go on their computer, make the order, and receive the merchandise here in their territory. They pay taxes within their state, within their jurisdiction, and there's no taxes that is paid here locally. So I think just along with hotels, the same concept with hotels is the same concept we have to do to level the playing field here with our retail industry. So that's another area that I'm looking into. So that'll be the second one that I'm kind of doing research to see if we could tap into that. Because the way how government operates and we are able to improve our infrastructure is through taxes. And it's important to find ways that we don't really burden our local community with taxes. For example, one I mentioned is paid by the tourists, not by locals.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Please stay tuned. We are heading for a short break, and we will be back with more Just for the Record with Samuel Carrion.
Hi, I'm Sherida Soul. I am here at Miss Naturalista. I am here on the Big Island of St. Croix. Not the first time, but my first time here at Miss Naturalista. They have been in business for 10 years. They sell everything, and I can't wait to see what they have.
Hi, welcome to Miss Naturalista.
Even though I personally don't have locks and I'm a loose natural, I know sometimes people with locks can feel overlooked in the hustle and bustle that is the natural hair community. So the fact that this store has products for people with locks is beautiful to me. Wow, it's an entire DIY section. A hot head. I tell you, this place has everything. I love using my hot head for my pre-poo. If you don't know what a pre-poo is, it's basically just throwing conditioner on your hair before you shampoo or do a co-wash. Just gets it nice and warm with this. It deeply penetrates into your hair strands. It gives you the conditioning that you need. I love it. I love using this for that, and I highly recommend it. And it's right here at Miss Naturalista.
I vote. I vote.
I vote.
I vote.
I vote because my life depends on it. Without my vote, I have no voice about the things that matter to me the most. Education, healthcare, and overall quality of life for me and my family drives me to stroll to the polls to cast my vote.
I vote because it's the right and responsible thing to do. I want to ensure there are leaders in government that have my best interests and the best interests of our territory at heart. I would be doing a great disservice if I didn't vote because my forefathers struggled and fought for that right. That's why I vote.
I vote for a better Virgin Islands.
I vote because it's my constitutional right. My forefathers before me sacrificed, so I can be afforded that right. Do the right thing.
I vote.
I vote.
I vote. I vote.
Welcome back to Just for the Record. My name is Colleen Williams. I'm a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, New Chi Zeta Chapter, and we're continuing our interview with Senator Sam Carrion. My Sora, Glenderlyn David, had the opportunity to ask you many questions before, so I'm bringing up the rear.
Good.
Senator Carrion, this is your what term as a senator?
My first term.
Your first term. And at the start of your first term, before you got into the legislature, you campaigned on many issues. What are some of the key issues that you campaigned on as part of your first term in the legislature?
Well, one of the issues that we campaigned on was on the workforce issue here in the territory. So I was very concerned with the fact that we weren't really preparing our workforce. And one of the stuff that I brought forward as an example was the refinery. And the fact that we knew that the refinery was about to open back then through Lime Tree. And I was concerned that we didn't really build our workforce internally. And we had a lot of the employees that came in, they came in from outside of the territory. So during this term, it was one of the things I campaigned about, strengthening our local workforce. And we've been advocating strongly with that. There's funding through the Department of Labor, and they have expanded, not only thinking on the refinery, but also on all the recovery dollars that are coming into the territory for construction and all the projects that we have.
And in terms of that particular issue, were you considering any particular type of legislation to support the effort to have our workforce ready for an oil refinery?
Well, we were looking into it, but when we realized the same, like in other fields and areas, we have a lot of laws that are already in the book. And sometimes because you're out, you don't realize it until you start doing the research process. So most of the time it's just a matter of implementing and executing what we have, or it's a matter of funding properly the departments and agencies that have the mission to carry those things out. And then continue being a voice to advocate for those individuals and on behalf of the territory in my district of St. Croix in that particular area. So that's something we've done during my first term.
And during your first term, Senator, what was one issue that you campaigned on that you haven't fully realized in terms of legislation or in terms of support from your other colleagues that you're planning to focus on should you be returned to the legislature?
Yes, I have a bill that is called the Public Building Authority. And part of it is really bringing back public work to what it was before and enhancing it even more. So we have a serious problem in the territory, and it's with our buildings, our government buildings. We have many government buildings that are abandoned, many that have closed down because of mold or other issues and poor maintenance. So what I'm proposing with this legislation that I haven't been able to fulfill in my first term, we're still working on it, is to, instead of having every department and agency have one person, 2 or 3 persons with one skill, have everyone in one center department, which is the Public Building Authority. And then each department and agencies can request assistance for maintenance accordingly. Because what's happening now, Ms. Williams, is the Department of Education might have an electrician, and then DPNR might have a plumber. And Sports and Park might have a masoner, as someone who does something different. But it's difficult then, if education needs someone with a special skill set, they don't have it in the department, it's hard to get them to come from another department to assist them. So what I'm proposing is having the whole maintenance team within one structure of government and having task orders, requests, and that way, instead of giving out so many contracts for repairs and renovations and maintenance for our public buildings, we have all our resources within one umbrella that can be dispersed to different government agencies, and that way we can maintain and enhance our buildings.
And does your legislation you're proposing, does it include a serious funding source? Because those technical positions are not easy to come by, number one, and number two, they cost money.
Yes, and that's why it has taken us some time to work on it. There's a lot of things that we need to improve. Part of it also, most of these positions are under contract through the union. So that's that area that we also have to navigate through the unions, through the salaries. So we really have to increase the salaries for some of these areas. That's why we have some vacancies within departments and agencies. So those are other, like you said, things that we're a little knots here and there that we're working through.
Can you make a correlation or even a connection between that proposed legislation and our Career and Technical Education Center? How can students going to the Technical Education Center be supported through that legislation?
Through internship programs within that legislation. So one of the things I think is important for our young people, like you mentioned, and those students that are in the technical school, is to really get that experience. So one of the things I'm looking into is to create that partnership between this department and the career and technical schools to ensure that we have a revolving door, people with skill sets and ability, and allow internship programs and students to gain that experience that are necessary in those fields.
I know, just changing the pace a little
Sure.
bit, I know that we have received quite a bit of federal funds as a result of our two most recent hurricanes, the pandemic. We received a lot of federal funds. Do you feel as a senator that the legislature may need to have a hand in saying how those funding should be dispersed and how departments should document their disbursement of those funds and document their management of those funds?
That's a very good question also, and that's one of the things that I also, when I was campaigning, spoke about a recovery process it's been slow. And each branch of government has their roles and responsibilities. As senators, of course, like I mentioned before, we're to create laws, we are to have oversight and also appropriate funding. So like you said, there's a lot of federal dollars that are coming into the territory. And one of the issues we're seeing is that a lot of it is going more into administrative costs than actually in the hands of the people that need it. And part of our role in that oversight is when we bring commissioners and directors before us, is to ask them, what's happening and provide suggestions, observations that we have. But it really falls on the executive branch to ensure that the implementation and the execution of these projects are taking place.
Should there be a cap on administrative costs?
It's really hard to put a cap on administrative costs because it depends on the project. But I do know that audits will come into play. So we need to make sure that we're accountable for every dollar, or else our local government will have to pay back and reimburse some of these expenses.
Yes, and that's a big concern.
And that's what we're trying to avoid.
Because with federal funds, Uncle Sam wants to know that what he gave you the money for, you're using it for exactly that. So I think the idea of having serious checks and balances with our federal funds is extremely important. We're hearing a lot of comments in the community about how we have a lot of money, the money is there, but the end result, seeing the projects and everything that are tied to these monies, we're not seeing. So as a senator trying to get back into the legislature, what is your mindset in terms of how do we mirror or how do we ensure that all of these projects that are lined up to be completed by federal funds get done?
I think part of what we have to do as a senator, and part of what I've been doing is building those relationships. So it's important to know that we in the Senate, we're here to be able to assist departments and agencies with what they have to do. So really having those conversations with our delegate to Congress. So, and also strengthening and being that support and lobbying in Washington, D.C. to ensure that all the red tapes, some of them are unnecessary, could be removed. Because we're talking about an emergency. We're talking about people that are in need. We're talking about buildings and structures that we need up like yesterday. It's been 5 years since the hurricane. So it's working collaboratively with the executive branch, with our delegate to Congress, and reaching out ourselves at times to our federal partners so that they can really understand our situation in the territory, and we can remove some of the bureaucracy and red tapes that something affects the progress of things. And we've been doing that. We'll continue to lobby and advocate.
Okay. Healthcare. I know my soror, Miss David, spoke to you at length about our situation here, particularly on the island of St. Croix. We're in hurricane season. Luckily for us, we don't have a functioning oil refinery in the event that something bad happens. What should be happening with our healthcare system here on the island of St. Croix?
I really think that it should be a priority, our healthcare system, and I think that there has to be a collaborative effort from the executive branch and the legislature to work to ensure that we build a healthcare system, not only a hospital, the whole system itself, that can attend to the needs of our people. And I'm hopeful that just the process for the hospital is just one part, but our Department of Health, with our commissioner, has a large role to play in the whole healthcare system and process. So there's a lot of work to be done. I know there's a cry from our committee because of the condition of our hospitals. So we will continue to work on that area and support and work along with our colleagues to ensure that things fall in place.
And by things falling in place, what specifically do you mean?
Well, for my role as a senator is properly funding our Department of Health, is sometimes advocating along with the unions to ensure that the employees are properly paid. Because we have a capacity issue and we're losing our nurses every day. And we're losing, and it's something not only locally, but at the national level. So there is a high demand for anyone in the healthcare field. So if we don't have and if we don't compete nationally, we will continue to lose our nurses. So that's one thing. But also the environment has to be safe, because we need those individuals working in that healthcare field to feel safe. Right now, GFL, because of damages sustained by the hurricanes, it's not a safe environment to work in. So there are different areas that we need to look at and ensure that bring those changes that are necessary.
I think personally, Senator, the human capital in the Department of Health needs to be seriously considered. What are some things that you strongly believe needs to happen in terms of retention of many of the current population, professional population that we have in the Department of Health, specifically our hospitals, and the recruitment process? I grew up in a family of nurses, and my mother was actually a head nurse at Wang Louis. And I understand some of the issues that they've had over the years. So as a senator, in terms of healthcare, retention and recruitment, what are your opinions on those?
I believe that they need to improve in recruitment, and they need to improve also in retention. And like I said, the retention portion of it has to do with, one, salary, two, a healthy working environment, because then it gives you that desire to work. So those are areas that the hospital needs to look into and have a more aggressive campaign for recruitment. But if our salaries are not at a competent level nationally, it'll be hard for us to recruit. I mean, the Virgin Islands is a beautiful place. Anyone would want to come here, but we need to ensure that those things are in place to be able to be attractive. So not only because of what we offer, but that the salary compensation, it's a par with any other place in the nation.
Okay. Going back to why you're running again, Senator, what is that one issue, that burning issue that you've had since your first term going into your possibly second term that you seriously want to address and have your fellow colleagues support you on?
Well, it's hard to just say one issue because when I decided to run, we realized that there are a number of issues that are affecting us here in the territory. I think in general, it's just improving the quality of life for all of us here in St. Croix and Virgin Islands. And I've been fighting for that any way that I can every day to improve it. So I've been moving in that direction, and that's what I'm looking into every day. Every day I walk into the office, okay, how can I improve the quality of life for my people in St. Croix? And we've been moving legislation and collaborating with my colleagues in order to do so. And that includes a wide variety of stuff. We have issues with crime. You mentioned the healthcare system, our education system. So creating a workforce, diversifying our economy, the cost of energy. So all of these things really affect the quality of life for our people. And every day I try to think, how can I make it better? What can I tackle today? What can I advocate? How can I advocate today on behalf of our people for this and for that? So that's what we've been doing, and we'll continue to do that on behalf of our people in St. Croix.
Well, Senator Carrion, thank you for being on Just for the Record. The men of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated and the ladies of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated really appreciate you taking the time out to sit with us and discuss some of the pressing issues that are affecting us here on the island of St. Croix and in particularly the U.S. Virgin Islands. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I just want to remind everyone, Sam Carrion, number 12 on the ballot, and allow me to continue to serve and represent you and work on your behalf to improve the quality of life for everyone here in St. Croix.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I vote.
I vote.
I vote.
I vote.
I vote. I vote.
I vote.
I vote.
I vote.
I vote.
I vote.
I vote.
I vote.
Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, Epsilon Iota Sigma Chapter,
And Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, New Chi Zeta Chapter, encourages you to participate in the process of democracy by voting.
As a citizen, your vote is your voice. You get to select the type of leader that reflects and represents your ideas and your interests.
You get the opportunity to choose your advocate.
This election, do not get left behind.
Do the right thing and vote.